This video includes every single text involved in the syllabus of the edXL English Language A IGCSE exam for 2023 onwards. Before the explanations, make sure you have some knowledge on the context of all texts. Otherwise, you will not understand what the quotes will be about. Here's a general overview of what your non-fiction text will be for. It's 12 marks for question 4, 22 marks for question 5, as those two questions will be the questions that you'll be answering via referencing from your non-fiction text. So here are some tips. In my own opinion, do not use PEEL paragraphs for question 4, because you only need simple PEE paragraphs for the question. You do not need to link it back to the context of the text, as you only need to demonstrate good understanding of the language and structural devices. You only need to use PEEL in question 5, because it's a comparison between two texts, and while comparing the structural devices and language devices, you can reference back to the context of the texts, and you can demonstrate the knowledge towards the examiner. For question 4, I recommend you writing 12 simple and concise PEE points. For question 5, however, you only need 4 to 5 PEEL paragraphs. You can make it a bit longer compared to question 4, because ultimately there are more marks allocated for question 5. The final important thing is to get enough sleep from the previous night before the exam. Therefore, your brain will function perfectly fine and your memory will be not impaired. For the quotes and analysis I've written in this video, it's from edXL Mark Schemes and 2 YouTube channels of First Rate Tutors and Mrs. Rumsey. The links of their channels will be in the description. The first text is the danger of a single story. Here are 12 main quotes and analysis that you can memorize while using it in your exam strategically. Adichie first establishes her credentials in the opening sentence by revealing she is a storyteller. Using this simple sentence effectively showcases her background as a prolific writer and what really influences her writing. This follows immediately with a second person pronoun, you, in the second sentence, introducing the theme of the speech through a direct address to the audience. Moving on, Adichie introduces her childhood memories to illustrate her ideas related to storytelling and the impacts literature has on stereotypes. This could be shown when she juxtaposes her own life with the books she was reading. They played in the snow, they ate apples, and they talked a lot about the weather. This contrasts with we didn't have snow, we ate mangoes, and we never talked about the weather. The parallel structures of the sentences emphasizes how the westernized books were so different to her life. Adichie then talks about the victimization of a story by using emotive adjectives such as impressionable and vulnerable to convey how easily a story could influence the reader, linking the audience to a writer like herself. The use of the conjunction but during the start of the 5th paragraph emphasizes how she started to discover unique African books while enduring a spectacular mental shift throughout the process. You can use the quote mental shift as a separate quote. I've not included into the PowerPoint, but you could remember that. Upon discovering African books, Adichie became three-dimensional, stating how she loved those American and British books she read, as the declarative sentence shows how Adichie doesn't want to criticize them, preventing some of her audience from thinking negatively about those books. By reading African and British books in her childhood, Adichie follows up the sentence by claiming how the books stirred my imagination, while opening up new worlds for me. By using hyperboles, she showcases how stories are not only powerful to the imagination, but also powerful to the personal identity. Moving on to the topic of the danger of stereotyping, Adichie's American roommate at her university has assumed that I did not know how to use a stove. This single short sentence paragraph relates to the people's false judgments about others while being severely ignorant. Adichie follows the paragraph up by applying repetition to the phrase single story. Using the phrase as a metaphor, she once again reinforces the key message of her speech, suggesting the seriousness of racial stereotyping issues. Towards the end of her speech, Adichie's tone became more positive as she shows how stories are quite transformative within her life and her career. Stories matter. Many stories matter. The use of simple repetitive sentences advocates the good of stories, mainly those that do not only have a single point of view. The negative impact of stories could only bring bizarre consequences, as some are used to dispossess and malign. This juxtaposes with how stories can also be used to empower and humanize. This emphasizes mainly their positive qualities. Moving on to the text, A Passage to Africa by George Alagiah. Here's 12 quotes. Alagiah opens the text by writing a powerful opening sentence that immediately gains the reader's attention. This is shown when he writes in hyperbole. The first quote, I saw 1,000 hungry, lean, scared and betrayed faces. This enables the readers to see Somalia through his own eyes. This sentence also includes listing, as Alagiah tries to make the readers intrigued into wondering what the true story really is behind these people by emphasizing the poverty. What makes them suffer so much? Engaging the readers, he uses the connective but, which produces a form of a narrative hook at the start of the story. Alagiah then educates the readers on his interest as a journalist by using strong emotive vocabulary throughout the passage, which is related to studying people who are suffering or people who find life especially challenging. He then links the end of paragraph 2 to the start of paragraph 3, a ghost village, the ghoulish manor. By using an extended metaphor of ghosts and spectres, it effectively describes his feelings and associations with death. This significantly shocks and disgusts the readers, as Alagiah admits how journalists are always on the hunt. While he admits the truth, it ultimately is an explanation of the disgusting and morbid psychology they have while looking for such information, as they would easily be perceived as predators by people. Alagiah also acknowledges that he could read the readers' minds. This could be shown by him stating, "This sounds callous, but it is just a fact of life." Using a compound sentence, Alagiah shows how he too understands it is somewhat unforgivable for journalists to almost indulge themselves in the habit of finding horrendously horrific stories just for the sake of benefit, rather than to help the people who are suffering. Alagai gets back into the story by writing about a devastating event. Habiba had died. This simple sentence was written in a clinical tone, as this confirms the lack of drama when it tragically happened, as it is just a simple statement of facts. This follows immediately by the full use of sensory experiences. No rage, no whimpering, simple, frictionless, motionless deliverance. Using literary techniques such as anaphora and triplets serves to emphasize how commonplace death is in Somalia. There wasn't even real emotion when the young girl passed away. Alagai introduces a powerful image of deformity late in the text. The shattered leg had fused into the gentle V-shape of a boomerang. Alagai used the word gentle to contrast the violence the old woman endured during the terrible situation. This follows immediately by a parallel sentence structure. It was rotting, she was rotting. The compound sentence links to a declarative statement that truly proposes the extent of her injury, which effectively causes the readers to feel horrified, as domestic language was also used. Alagai then uses a simple sentence, paragraph, in order to feature a turning point in the passage. And then there was the face I will never forget. This reorientates the reader away from the overwhelming pain and suffering, transferring back to the opening hook. On to The Explorer's Daughter. 12 quotes will be included. Herbert begins the passage as a narrative recount. 2 hours after the last of the hunters had returned and eaten, narwhal was spotted again, this time very close. This opening complex sentence simply draws readers into the story, which creates immediate tension and anticipation. Herbert then depicts exploring experience by using visual imagery. It is shown by plumes of spray and a spectral play of colour. Writing in hyperbole, she describes the beauty of the narwhal, especially the majestic appearances. Herbert not only writes about the narwhal, she also introduces the scenery as she looked across the glittering kingdom. By using a metaphor, she effectively entices the readers by emphasizing the brightness and the snowy environment around the Arctic area. She then develops excitement within the text by taking a sharp intake of breath. By using the adverb sharp, she informs the readers about the sudden events that are happening around her. Herbert highlights the necessity to hunt narwhals. This could be found as she talks about the mattock and bladder of the narwhal. By using technical language in the paragraph, she was aware to be scientific and precise to the readers, which undercuts the beautiful language earlier in the text. Herbert then writes about the importance of the semantic field of nutrition in the narwhal, how the whale is rich in necessary minerals and vitamins. This proves the value a narwhal has in terms of food to the locals, introducing a strongly pragmatic element to the passage, as they live in a place where the climate prohibits the growth of vegetables or fruit. The quote, "The climate prohibits the growth of vegetable or fruit," is from the text, so you can quote that as well. I didn't put that in PowerPoint, so you can add that in if you want. Herbert rewinds to the excitement of the hunt by once again building tension and anticipation. This is shown as the woman spun round at a small gasp or jump, suggesting how hunting narwhal is a dangerous activity. Herbert then talks about how the hunters are slowly closing up on their prey. Every hunter was on the water. By using a simple sentence, she continues the build of suspense within the text by emphasizing the importance of the hunt to the whole community. Herbert continues the action by painting a powerful image in the reader's minds, like watching a vast waterborne game with the hunters spread like a net. By using a double simile, She explains the risks associated with hunting narwhal and how it isn't a game and should be taken seriously. However, Herbert changes her viewpoint while describing narwhals as intelligent. By using this adjective, she not only generates empathy, but also encourages readers to recognize them as sentient beings, not simply meant to be captured. Towards the end of the passage, Herbert has mixed feelings as she expressed her respect for the hunters, especially for what is on the line for them. This is demonstrated through her use of motive and powerful vocabulary throughout the text. She also prays for the narwhal to miraculously swim away by using a tricolon: to dive, to leave, to survive. This summarizes how survival is difficult in our landscape, generating strong feelings of sympathy for the narwhal. The next text is Explorers or Boys Messing About. Here are 12 quotes from the text. Morris begins the article by giving the readers an impression of the men's idiocy. The last expedition ended in farce. Using a complex sentence by including semantic contrast between the two words expedition and farce, she indicates scorn towards the men. Morris then shows how the massive exploration almost ended catastrophically by using the active verb tragedy in the next paragraph. This signifies the serious consequences of the men's actions. After introducing the incident, Morris ridicules their expedition. This could be seen from the phrase plucked from the icy water. The active verb introduces cartoonish imagery that indicates the hostility of the surroundings during the exploration. Morris continues to insult the men by writing about how the rescue involved the Royal Navy, the RAF, and the British Coast Guards. The listing effectively explains the sheer size of the rescue mission and the resources wasted of rescuing these two men. Moreover, Morris suggests how they took a small helicopter, which had a single engine, into the expedition. The technical language showcases how the men were poorly prepared. This also links to the start of the 5th paragraph, where Morris implemented the term expert. This simply questions and undermines the judgment of the men. Morris resumed humiliating the men by mentioning one of the nicknames in the article, Q. The usage of the metaphor that refers to James Bond properly juxtaposes the mentioning of boys in the title. This depicts them as overgrown children, pretending to be on an adventure. Morris contrasts this with the exact age numbers Morris stated earlier: Mr. Brooks, 42, and 42-year-old Mr. Smith. Proper formal ages were given to indicate their childishness, suggesting that they should have known better. In addition, Morris further writes about the embarrassment of the men as she discusses their social statuses. Breitling Emergency Watch and a wedding present. Breitling Emergency Watch as a wedding present. By using premodifiers, Morris hints at how others knew he is likely to need rescuing in the future. Late in the passage, Morris attempts to cause the readers to have a negative opinion of the men. This has been shown by how they have hit the headlines for the wrong reasons. This is a motive language. By using this, Morris effectively demonstrates the men's cavalier and selfish appearance, trying to convince the readers the stupidity was only to gain attention. Morris then refers back to the waste of resources being used on these men by quoting the Royal Navy's ice patrol ship, named the HMS Endurance. She implies irony as the ship was mainly used for massive responsibilities such as surveying uncharted waters. In the last sentence, Morris applies colloquial language to display the punishments they will most likely receive. They'll probably have their bottoms kicked and be sent home the long way. This expedition almost resulted in a dangerous military intervention from the Russians. Between a Rock and a Hard Place is one of the texts within your non-fiction anthology part of the course. However, the text came up in last year's paper, so it won't come up in this year's paper. We're not going through that text, we're going through Young and Dyslexic, and here are 12 quotes from the text. Zephaniah begins the article by sharing his personal experience. As a child, I suffered. Using the term suffered as a mode of language suggests him having a hard time during his childhood, which also appeals to the feelings of the readers. Zephaniah follows the phrase with parallel sentence structure. We are the architects, we are the designers. This is used to provoke a sense of unity while comforting people with dyslexia. The issues Zephaniah has faced because of dyslexia, he emphasizes it as the big problem. This single sentence significantly shows the challenges he had experienced and how traumatizing it must be. Getting into the middle of the passage, Zephaniah expresses his opinions on the education system. No compassion, no understanding, and no humanity. By using a tricolon, he proposes how the education system lacks care for students, which generates sympathy for the writer. Zephaniah also implemented a repetition of no within the tricolon, criticizing once again how the education system leaves no room for attachments for students that has disabilities and odds stacked against them. Zephaniah then contrasts the education system from the past to the present by using a metaphor. The past is a different kind of country. The juxtaposition shows how time truly has changed, how the past was worse, and he still has hope for the future. Zephaniah includes anecdotes about his school days to enliven the article. Then good people could do 1/3 more good in the world. This highlights his experiences back then, how he thought very creatively, while relating how dyslexia could somehow be an advantage for certain individuals. Zephaniah reveals a dialogue between the teacher and himself. Shut up, stupid boy. Bad people would do 1/3 more bad. The direct speech included sibilants from the insults the teacher had thrown at him, further showing how difficult life was back then, how it was harsh and brutal for students that require special treatment. Moreover, Zephaniah discusses racism in education using animalistic language, Africa, and the local savages. This emphasizes how the teachers stereotype the Africans as unintelligent. This links to another example of Zephaniah gave. It was, why don't you go outside and play some football? This hints at how the teachers were assuming once more that Africans were only mainly good at sports and don't belong in academia. Zephaniah links dyslexia with getting into trouble, getting thrown out from schools. He uses such a negative violent verb to propose how he couldn't have done anything to prevent getting expelled from school. Zephaniah further convinces the readers as he further admits his wrongdoing in his childhood, being a rude boy and arguing with teachers. This ultimately explains the defiance of authority. Moving on to a game of polo with a headless goat. Here are 12 quotes selected from the text. Levine begins the passage by introducing excitement straight away. The repetition of the pronoun we hints at a group adventure, as she is driven off to film the race without any probable explanation towards the reader. Levine then adds a colloquial tone to the term lads. By using such a noun, he emphasizes the youth of the two people she has met. The paragraph was written in a positive tone. This could be shown by the phrase wacky races. Levine features a play of words in order to refer the readers to an old cartoon relating to cars or jets. Levine hints at the dangerousness of the activity by using direct speech. We'll open the car boot, you climb inside. By featuring dialogue, she effectively shows how they try to be helpful, suggesting how the writer can get the best view of the race. As Levine offers assistance, the dialogue continues as Yaqub and Iqbal are willing to oblige when Levine asks them if they will try to get to the front of the race. Oh yes, that's no problem. Going into the second paragraph with a humorous attitude, Levine suggests a sudden burst of fervour within Yaqub and Iqbal by showcasing how they had never been interested in this Karachi sport, but were suddenly fired up with enthusiasm. Never been interested and enthusiasm is juxtaposition. By using this, She convinces the readers of a change in their attitudes to race. Levine then further proves the enthusiasm by highlighting the impatience within the individuals by using the term eternity. Using hyperbole, she indicates the waiting time that everybody spectating the race has to endure, while building up suspense and excitement. Levine continues the build of humour in the text while still waiting for action. This could be seen by the use of adjective wobbly bicycle, explaining what a letdown it is after they are pumped up to see the racing, justifying sympathy from the readers. Advancing further into the passage, Levine describes the approaching race using visual imagery. Their jockeys perched on top of the tiny carts using their whips energetically. The close race truly builds up the intensity of the activity, letting the readers predict if she was truly impressed with the racing. Levine's humour is now replaced by serious race as she uses onomatopoeic sounds such as horns tooting or bells ringing. Using auditory imagery, her sense of detached amusement is also replaced by a real interest in the race. Towards the end of the text, Levine writes about how she felt threatened as the situation is no longer humorous or exciting, but has the potential for danger. This could be shown in the motive adjective volatile to indicate the end of the race, and usher in a sudden change in her feelings. Levine was also relieved that Yakub has not told her until after the race that he does not have a driving license, stating how they were underage and could have caused problems. Getting into the text of A Journey into Bhutan, here are 12 quotes selected. Zeppa begins the passage by highlighting the mountainous terrain in Bhutan. Mountains all around, climbing up to peaks, rolling into valleys. This is a syndeton, which emphasizes how the scenery is all hidden by the sheer landmass, covered by mountains. Zeppa continues to describe the landscape dramatically by using visual imagery. A giant child. Not only does this sculpt the surroundings, but also helps the reader imagine what it looks like. Zeppa shows how the landscape looks crafted by using precise verbs such as gathering, piling, or pinching. This shows how drastically untouched and vast the region is, how it was unbelievable. Zeppa gives a concrete idea to the readers by introducing where she is, by using city names such as Thimphu or Paro. The names educate the audience on its geography, giving the readers a concrete idea of what the capital is called and where it is. Zeppa implements mathematical language to demonstrate Bhutan's remoteness. Took 5 different flights over 4 days to get there. The alliteration shows the writer's exhaustion, which provokes sympathy while conveying a sense of distance travelled. As Zeppa was exhausted, she gives some idea of the height of the mountains by repeating the words mountains 6 times. This is repetition, which reinforces her overwhelming initial impression of the country. Zeppa then juxtaposes the beauty of the landscape with how challenging the landscape is, by using a list of monosyllabic adjectives. The winter air is thin and dry and very cold. This gives the readers a sense of breathlessness caused by the altitude, how tough it really is. Zeppa opens the 3rd paragraph with a time marker. The next morning. The adverbial phrase of the time shows how she processed the difficulties during rest, implying that she has adopted the challenges. Zeppa starts coming back to her original life, juxtaposing the drab food, instant coffee, powdered milk, plasticky white bread, and flavourless red jam with the beautiful environment she has discovered. Zeppa surprises the readers by claiming she isn't excited, hoping to pick up some of the enthusiasm, using the abstract noun enthusiasm compared to how ecstatic the other 2 Canadians were well-travelled and thrilled. Towards the end of the passage, Zeppa shares with the readers what she learns about Bhutanese history. Historical records show that waves of Tibetan immigrants settled in Bhutan sometime before the 10th century. Using such a complex sentence, she convinces the readers how she seemed fascinated by the names given to the country and and its district in the past, showing her intrigue. Despite the country's drawbacks, Zeppa finishes the passage on how she respects and likes Bhutan, how she was full of admiration for the small country that has managed to look after itself so well. Writing this in first person, she effectively ends the extract with a positive note. Moving on to H is for Hawk, here are 12 quotes selected. MacDonald begins the passage by starting to write during the middle of action. This could be shown as she introduces her captive-bred rare birds. By using pre-modifiers like such, she emphasises the uniqueness of the birds. MacDonald builds excitement as the man makes sure she receives the correct falcon. Don't want you going home with the wrong bird. By using foreshadowing, it further shows how she is entrenched in knowing about the falcons. MacDonald resumes looking at the packages the hawks are stored in, trying to examine the birds as the man squinted into its dark interior. Using the active verb squinted, she gradually reveals what is within the box by building tension. However, it is not possible for the writer or the reader to tell what's in the box. MacDonald then illustrates the noise of the hawk using the onomatopoeic noun thump. This conveys a sense of the power of the first bird, emphasized further by the use of italics and repetition of the word, generating suspense. To show how forceful and powerful the hawk is, MacDonald highlights how the man frowned as the hawk removed its hood. By using another active verb, she hints at how the situation isn't normal, as she is captivated by the hawk's movement. MacDonald gets into the middle of the passage by showing a rapid pace of change in the situation, by using abstract nouns such as concentration or caution, and short minor opening sentences such as another hinge untied, or daylight irrigating the box. This builds up anticipation as she goes face to face with the hawk that changes her life, conveying to readers how delicate the situation is. MacDonald draws attention to the agitation of the bird by using alliteration before a battle. This suggests there might be sudden conflict where she sees the bird, provoking sympathy from the readers. MacDonald highlights the hawk's impatience, whirring, chaotic clatter of wings and feet and talons. Employing both listing and onomatopoeia, she conveys a sense of wild noise, confusion, and possible danger. MacDonald then provides a sense of immediacy to the reader with the clause, "It's all happening at once." Switching to the present tense, she indicates the overwhelming speed and rush with which events seem to be unfolding. Ranting about the situation, she resumes writing her strong reactions. My heart jumps sideways. The hyperbole implies a sense of apprehension, fear, excitement, or uncertainty within herself. The man unboxes the first hawk as MacDonald tries to give readers images of what it looks like by using short sentences containing a range of metaphors. However, the phrase that stands out, like gold falling through water, is a simile. By using this, she suggests how the bird might be something very precious, showcasing how hard it is for the writer to convey an exact appearance and effect. Towards the end of the passage, there is a single word paragraph that suspends the movement of the narrative, leaving the readers to wonder what might follow. Oh. The term, which shouldn't be too important, powerfully conveys the writer's apprehension and the dawning realization that this is not the right bird. The last text involved in the non-fiction anthology is Chinese Cinderella. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go through that because it came up in the paper of June 2019, and it won't come up. Thank you very much for watching.